Hello and welcome to the It Doesn't Hold Up podcast. We review and re-evaluate all things we remembered fondly from our childhood and years prior to see if they still hold up. And more often than not, they probably don't. I'm Stuart Shepherd, along with my co-host and good friend Michael Smith. Smith, how are you doing?
Well, in the words of the turtle, Stuart, I am doing cowabunga. I
Oh, how
think I'm
very
using that
apt.
right.
You are using that right, and how very apt, because yes, quite right, our nomination this week, our first nomination for our pilot episode, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. So, yeah,
No cartoon.
it's no cartoon, quite right. It is the film. Although it did take 3 years until they made a film. So this is the first adaptation. We're not going to cover the other ones because, quite frankly, they're shit. So we're going to cover this one because it holds very dearly in my heart. I was the one who chose this, and yes, I made Smith rewatch this in prep for this episode. So yeah, I guess we'll just crack on. So this is the big screen adaptation of the cartoon. The cartoon had run for about 2 or 3 seasons from 1987 to 1990, and by believe it was 1990 November in the UK. It'd been released, although it had actually been released, quite a few months prior in America. When was it, Smith? March
March.
1990?
Yeah, March 1990.
Yeah, I remember because there was word of it, playground conversations or whatever, because there was no internet back there. There was some comics, maybe some film magazines. If we were lucky, we were probably a bit too young for that. But there was talk of this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, but it'd come out way in advance in America. But there were some really terrible pirate copies floating around, and if you were lucky to or unlucky to get hold of a copy, you got to see it, firsthand. But I remember we got hold of a copy of Turtles because my parents wouldn't take me to see it at the cinema, which I was most disappointed about. And we got a copy of this pirate, and it was dreadful. I mean, this film is quite dimly lit anyway. You can't really see too well what's going on, and this pirate was unbearable. So I didn't actually watch it probably until around May, June of 1991. What about you? When did you watch it?
So, I mean, I think you hold this film slightly dearer to your heart than I hold it to mine, and I can't necessarily remember the first time I watched it. I can remember very clearly the first time I watched number two, because that was at the
Hmm.
cinema. I remember that very clearly and started a very short-lived love affair with yo-yos and yo-yo tricks, which I tried and then found out they actually require practice, and then I gave up immediately. Um, I did, however, have a pirate, similar to you, and it was unwatchably dark to the point where all you could do is just hear the turtles and see vague flashes of shell every now and again. I
Yeah.
honestly could not tell you a single thing that happened from that early viewing that I had when I was a child. And now I've got it on a 1080p Blu-ray, it doesn't need it.
But it's still dark though, right? Even though you've got the
It's
1080p
still
HD.
it's still very dark. Yes.
Yeah. So you saw a part of it, it was dark. Do you remember when you saw the first copy of it properly? Was it TV? Was it a video rental? Like, because you didn't see it at the cinema either,
I
did you?
No, I didn't see it at the cinema. I would have been too young, I would imagine, maybe five or so. I think it would have been on video rental, probably from Blockbusters or Primetime Video on Bexley Heath High Street.
Oh, that takes us back. Perhaps we have to do an episode on prime time video.
Not
Not that
there
we,
anymore.
yeah, we can't go back and experience it. I think it's a pet store now in Bexley Heath. So yeah, but prime time video, my God. And do you remember Ritz?
Mm,
There was Blockbuster, there was Ritz, there was prime time video.
no, I don't remember it.
Oh, perhaps we'll do an episode on Ritz as well. Maybe we'll do a combined one of all those old video shops from the 80s and the 90s. They were something to remember. Okay, cool. So we're in agreement. We probably watched this around about 1991 when we were about 5 or 6, give or take. But yeah, I remember that Blockbuster Video. My mum and and my brother would go up to Blockbuster Video. We kept on asking, "When's it coming out? When's it coming out?" Because films used to go to the cinema, and then like 6 months later they would arrive on video. Sometimes longer, 7, 8 months. It was madness. Whereas like now, you get a film at the cinema, and before you know it, it's on Sky Box Office to watch. It's incredible.
Or it's VOD on exactly the same day.
Exactly. So how times have changed. But yeah, I remember watching it. Yeah, so it must have been summer 1991, and then Turtles 2 came out within a month of that. And again, same thing. It came out in America in March 1991, and then we got it again. Well, I guess October time 1991. So yeah, I would have seen Turtles and Turtles 2 within a few months of each other, but I saw Turtles 2 at the cinema. So that was a real treat, although it was a massive disappointment if you ask me. But anyway, we're not talking about Turtles 2 today. We're talking about Turtles 1. So I guess where do we start? So I personally think it's quite true to the cartoon. So I realized the other day I'd never watched the pilot episode of the cartoon. So even though
Mm.
I was a huge fan of it, watched it for the first, I don't know, 6, 7 series or whatever, but I realized I'd never actually seen the first ever episode. So I went back and watched it. And you know what? It's pretty much spot on. The cartoon starts off with April O'Neil is reporting on crime. Then she gets jumped by a a gang, and then she escapes into the sewers. The turtles rescue her, and then she passes out. And then when she comes to, Splinter explains where they came from, and it's near enough exactly the same. So that was quite true. But in terms of the film starts off. We get a nice panning shot of New York City, Manhattan. There's crime everywhere. People are pickpocketing, and
there's 1980s crime everywhere.
yeah,
There
yeah,
is. I the
borderline 1990, but yeah, 80s
the
crime.
Rube Goldbergian efforts to which these criminals go to pick someone's pocket, hand it to another person, hand it to another person, run
Yeah,
it back round into this side alley, and then hand it to a ninja gang.
yeah. And the bit that cracked me up, there's a woman watching telly on her balcony. She goes like that, and it turns around and it's gone. He didn't even unplug it. He just took it like it was a cardboard box. Okay.
Well, they cleared out an entire van in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, the guy's like, oh, jeez. That was so funny. Yeah, so there's all this petty crime going on, and April O'Neil's reporting on it. And then she comes out wearing a yellow Mac, which is a little nod to how she was in the cartoon. She always wore that awful yellow jumpsuit. And then, yeah, gets attacked. Then Asai takes out the light. You hear the whoop, bah, 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 bah. And then next thing you know,
More than once in this film do we have instances where they turn the lights off so the turtles can fight people.
and you know what? I'm all right with that because they don't want to be seen. They want to be, heroes of the night or whatever. But practicality is like, how are you actually doing any of this? Can turtles see you in the night? I don't know. Yeah.
I have absolutely
Someone...
no idea what turtles can see in the
Not necessarily.
But then again,
Tim...
turtles can't do ninja stuff, so they can't do ninjutsu. No, or talk.
Apparently, they don't eat pizza. It's lies. But yeah,
better turtle pizza once it died.
Well, that's for another episode. But anyway, so
review the experience of buying a turtle, feeding it pizza, and having to bury it.
Yeah, whoops. Anyway, we digress. So April comes to. For some reason, someone's called the cops. The turtles have tied up these dudes, and Raphael's lost a sigh. And then we cut to the credits. It's got the most catchiest tune I've ever heard in my life. In fact, I was singing it for about a week after. And like, love it.
Like 80s B track number 3. It's just like the random 80s title music.
Yeah, something like that. I still loved it though. But then you get your first glimpse of the turtles. They look really good. To be honest, I think the animatronics rather than CGI. I know the guys in big rubber suits and animatronic heads, but very, very cool.
I think you get the Jim Henson company to come and create your creatures, you're going to have some decent looking creatures.
Yeah,
it was actually one of the last things that Jim Henson worked on before he died. So he oversaw quite a lot of the production of the turtle heads.
Wasn't it the Muppet Christmas Carol the last thing he did before he died? Like the last proper thing?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was the last thing that he was fully involved in.
Yeah, because
but this was one of the... Yeah, so this is one of the last projects that he oversaw before he died, which is why you see a massive drop off in quality after 2, and when you get to Turtles 3, Turtles in Time, the masks are made by a different company and look completely different and look absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and for the record, we are not colouring Turtles 3 on this.
I've never seen Turtles in Time. I've only seen clips of it.
Is it called Turtles in Time? I just remember it being called Turtles 3.
And I got it in my head it's called Turtles in Time. I might just be making that up.
Isn't it?
It's a catchier title.
They go back to Japan or some stuff with like samurais and all this stuff. Ugh, awful. No, I don't want to see it. No. Cool. So we get to the sewer. We're introduced to Splinter, and Splinter's like, "Okay, yeah, good work. You've passed your first test and all that sort of thing." And that's where we're introduced to Raphael being the very angry turtle that he's lost his sigh and whatever else.
For my money, the Splinter puppet is, with the exception of one bit, the Splinter puppet is the best thing in this film from a visual perspective. It looks amazing. All the way up until the end when you see him standing there and he looks fucking ridiculous. Before that, it's the most impressive puppet in the entire film.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I thought on the rewatch, he's going to look awful, but no, he does look really cool. We'll get onto the origin story about Splinter later because that's not quite right. And that was a bit of a bugbear that I had, but yeah, so that's cool. So then April carries on reporting, even though her boss Charles tells her to be careful and all that sort of thing. We're introduced
80s dad.
80s dad.
80s dad.
Who's got a delinquent son, Danny, who we're already introduced to earlier because he was one of the pickpockets, the ones who was going like that with his arm and what it gets taken. Yeah, and then you see your first glimpse of Shredder. Now, I love Shredder in this film. He looks badass, like they really got him right. Like his helmet looks amazing, like the cloak, everything. Didn't have all that ridiculous purple he had in the cartoon. It just looks really, really cool. He orders for April to be killed, and then the Foot Clan meet her in the
unnecessarily throws a knife into the television.
He
but
also
then
has multiple televisions.
yeah, he
Presumably all the
appears to
ones
have
have been stolen.
stolen all the televisions in New York City. So
Yeah,
he doesn't need to use a remote. He can just throw knives at them to change the channel.
exactly, exactly. And then April is attacked in the sewer. No, in the subway, sorry, by the Foot Clan. Now I like the fact that the foot soldiers were actual soldiers. They were runaway boys, from New York who've joined this clan. There were Japanese soldiers that have come over. They've joined the clan. Whereas in the cartoon, there were robots, and that was rubbish. I hated that. I was like, why does Shredder have an army of robots that look exactly like humans? Rubbish.
I mean, I don't understand in this film. I mean, I get it if they've come over from Japan, although I have questions which I might come back to later on what Shredder's plan in this film is, because he appears to just want to steal wallets and stuff from the back of trucks. He's hardly a criminal mastermind. And then he's turning street delinquents into ninjas. I mean, those two things are not the same. It is a completely different discipline.
Well, I saw it as they were nicking stuff to fund their crime to then,
But to fund what crime? Because all I see is Shredder and Tatsu hanging
I'll
around
come
with a
to him
bunch of
later.
kids, hanging around with a bunch of kids in a warehouse. Like it's got quite strong nonce vibes running through the Shredder subplot.
It does. And it also reminded me of Pinocchio. You know that bit when they get to Pleasure Island, when all the boys can smoke and
Yes.
drink and do whatever they want, except these don't turn into donkeys, they turn into ninjas, apparently. But yeah. So anyway, back to the subway. April makes a very racist remark. She says, "What's wrong? Am I behind in my Sony payments?" Like, doesn't age well. They start beating her up, and then Raphael grabs his sign, a really kick-ass scene, and beats the hell out of them, and then runs to his lair. But one of the foot soldiers was not incapacitated. He sees where she is, and a ninja starts following her. So a ninja follows a ninja and doesn't detect, whatever. So we get to the sewer, and then just seems very unnecessary. Splinter starts giving all this exposition about, oh, this is where we come from. This is exactly what happens. I don't think April even asked.
He just wants to tell that story every time anyone comes down here.
Oh, not again, Splinter. How many times?
I don't know about you, but when the bit, I don't know, maybe it's just my version, but the bit when it goes to the flashbacks, suddenly the camera work gets really low res. Like
It
it
gets
suddenly
really
looks really
dark.
grainy, really
Yeah,
dark, really
yeah.
tight. You've got the little tiny turtles that look like old men, just being like, "Hey, suddenly I turned into a turtle."
Yeah.
Um, and then him giving this unnecessary amount of backstory, like where a rat rescues some turtles that had some ooze in them. So this is an interesting one. Do you know what Eastman and Laird, who are the original writers of the Turtles comic, based what Turtles was a parody of?
Oh, it was a parody. I never knew this. What was
Mm.
it a parody of?
Daredevil. So Daredevil fights the hand, and the
Okay.
turtles fight the foot. And the ooze that turns the turtles into the turtle is, in canon, supposedly the same ooze that hits Matt Murdock in the face as a child and turns him into Daredevil.
Yeah, but that just made him super strong. It didn't evolve him and make him
Well,
massive
yeah,
or
but
turn him into anything.
it gave him the sonar, but
Okay.
they wrote it as a parody of Daredevil, pretty much.
Makes sense. They're
And
protecting New York just like Daredevil is. So yeah.
yeah. So there, that's that's why you've got the ooze. That's why you've got the foot. That's why you've got all the ninjas stuff going on.
Got yeah. And we don't really explain where the ooze comes from. I know that explains it in the second one, which is a horrendous pile of shit. We're not going to cover it. Or maybe we will, just because it's so ridiculous. It's
It's the
amazing.
one I remember more fondly from my childhood, but it's the one I do fear will not have held up as well because it's got a Vanilla Ice cameo in it.
Oh my god, that bit's so good. Go ninja, go ninja, go.
It's not good.
No, it's not. And
It's not good.
yeah, but no, perhaps we will talk about it another time. But
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, yeah, they never explain where the ooze comes from because in the cartoon, you get to like the second or third episode and they explain it was Shredder who put it down there. I was like, oh, okay. And then he creates Rocksteady and Bebop. But anyway, that's not in this film. So we get this exposition. The Turtles take April home. They have a jolly old time eating frozen pizza and whatever else.
She comes around to the concept of giant anthropomorphic talking turtles very quickly.
Yeah, oh,
Also,
they're my new friends. Like, okay.
immediately she's like, "Oh no, I'm dreaming again. Why don't I dream of Harrison Ford?" And then suddenly she's just having a good old laugh with her new mates. Her new mates, who by the way live in a sewer, so must smell absolutely fucking terrible.
Yeah, there's a bit when they're walking through literal piss and they seem
Yeah, and
okay
she's
with
wearing
that.
heels. She's wearing heels. It's like that's completely normal footwear to be wearing in the sewer.
Oh god, no! They can even try walking up a bit on the brick part so they don't walk in the
No,
piss.
no,
But
just wait till the
yeah, that's
end.
all right.
Just get about. Start
Turd
singing in
floats
the
past,
rain. But
but with piss and shit. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
But no. So yeah, they go back to flat. They have a good old time. They come back, and Splinter's been taken, and it's because that ninja has followed them home and now knows where the lair are. Now, instead of killing Splinter, for some reason they just take him back to the lair where all the clan are, probably to try and interrogate him and find out
Well, again,
who are
interrogate
you
for
and what they
what
are.
is Shredder's plan?
Well, yes,
What is he trying to do?
I think he's trying to eliminate any threats. So when he hears stories of, hang on, there's these mutant turtles down there and this weird rat-looking thing, he's like, right, okay, bring it back here and we'll find out what the hell's going on because I don't want to be threatened. Because we get that really cool scene later on where he enters and gives a whole spiel and all that sort of thing. So Turtles go back to April's house because now they're going to live there, I guess, because they can't just stay down in the sewer. So they go back to April's house. Charles and his son come over and they're all hiding ninja style. And then that's when Danny sees one of them. Like, yeah, there's a turtle here.
Well, 80s style, one of them gets under a table.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, they're not very good at hiding the turtles. They're not very good at camouflage. I mean, early on in the movie, Splinter says to them, "Were you seen?" And they're like, "Oh no, Sensei, we weren't seen." And they're like, "Right, in this one thing, you must never fail, except until like literally 10 minutes later, when you can fail as much as you want and be seen by everybody." Or Raphael goes out in your big flasher coat with a hat on to watch a movie.
Oh yeah, actually we've skipped over a part. So yes,
We
that was
skipped over that bit. Yeah.
that bit. So yeah, so after, sorry, let's rewind a bit. So yeah, at the beginning bit, when we first meet the turtles, Raph instantly he's angry. He's like, right, that's it. I'm going out to watch a film. Goes out to watch Critters for some reason because even though that came out in 1986, he's going to see it in 1990. But that's fine. But yes, nobody spots that this man who's clearly a giant turtle, who's wearing a trench coat and a hat, has gone to see a film. Now later on in the cartoon, they had like these rubber masks that made them look like humans. Like, oh, okay, cool. But I guess they probably thought this looked shit, so they just thought, it's dark, it's New York, no one's going to spot a big turtle. And yeah,
He
someone
smells
runs.
of shit.
Who smells of shit? Yeah.
It smells like he lives in a sewer
For
and
some
he's
reason,
wearing a
they had
flasher coat.
and he had a backpack on for some reason. What's in the backpack? But anyway, so
Turtle stuff.
turtle stuff. Yeah, bird seed or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so they're walking along. He's walking along, and some woman gets her bag snatched, and he manages to stop it. But these two dudes run away, and for some reason, Casey Jones turns up and decides to punish these two guys, even though Raphael's just punishment. And this is the part of the film I hated because these two muggers run off, and in Casey and Raphael have a bit of a showdown, and it's playing the most awful music ever, like this baseball music, like do 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 do. Oh, this is awful. And then beats up Raphael, and then Casey Jones runs off, and then we're not
So
introduced to him until much later in the film.
I've got to think that there was a British person involved in the screenwriting of this or in the direction of this because he gets out a cricket bat,
That's
wallops
right.
Raphael into a trash can, and then makes 6 runs. It's like that is for an American film of 1990 a pretty accurate cricket reference. So I don't know where they've got that from or who's written that in or why it didn't get cut, but
Yeah,
it stood out like a sore thumb.
there's all sorts of sports stuff in here. There's the cricket bat, there's the hockey stick, and then later on when we get to it, he wallops Tatsu with a golf club as well. Ugh. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get
So
to
anyway,
Casey Jones.
yeah, I can't believe we forgot about Casey Jones, but yes. So anyway, then Danny gets into a massive argument with his dad because the police captain or whatever has found out he's been stealing. Danny runs off and officially joins the Foot Clan. And then this is when we're introduced to Shredder. Now, this bit was awesome. Like, he comes in very, very slowly and that sort of thing, and he looks absolutely badass. But the bit I couldn't stop laughing at was like, I am your father. I was like, oh, you could have said anything else, right? You could have said anything else, but no.
So, no, someone saw Star Wars. No, the bit that made me laugh is when he gets there. He's kind of walked in. He looks impressive. He's got his big cloak on. And Tatsu comes up and just like takes his little bits of, takes his cloak off his little shoulder armor. I'm like, who are you doing that for, Tatsu?
And he never wears the cloak again after that.
Yeah, what's all this pageantry about? You impressing these street kids?
Oh god! And Tatsu was just like a Bond villain, like like the henchman you have to get through to get to the Bond villain type thing. God, and there was a bit when he's fighting with some dude, and the dude like bows his head, he kicks him in the face. He's like, "Never lower your eyes to an enemy." He's like, "I swear that's in the Man with a Golden Gun" or something like that. But anyway, it just seems like this film was ripping off a lot of films. But yeah, this is when Danny sort of volunteers. By the way, inadvertently, you don't see it. I know where the turtles are. I know we can get them because Shredder starts saying, "Oh, these guys are a menace. They're freaks of nature. They need to be eradicated," and this sort of stuff. Cut back to April's house, and they're having a jolly old time watching TV. And then Leo and Raph...
completely forgotten about Splinter for a bit. They're having
yeah,
a good old time. Sure, having a great laugh.
Yeah, because when Splinter's first stolen, Raph is like, no, like that, and then suddenly they're just watching cartoons and eating crap.
Bunch of lads watching the telly.
Yeah. Then Raph and Leo get into a big old argument, and Raph goes up on the roof, which is clearly not the roof of April's building, but
Oh God, it's
whatever.
nowhere near.
Yeah, and then starts doing a load of cartwheels and kicks, that sort of thing. And then
It's like
suddenly,
the Kevin Bacon school of emoting, right?
yeah,
When in doubt, just dance fight.
yeah, most people like punch walls or something, but no, he just does cartwheels and stuff. Then for some reason, Casey Jones just happens to be on another building across the way fixing something, and he's like, "Oh, that's the dude I must have met in the park earlier on." Then there's this really cool bit. You see all the foot soldiers come behind Raph. They have a massive old fight. Meanwhile, downstairs, April's decided to give them a tour of the antique store that she lives above. Okay, whatever. Then,
that she owns. Because earlier
yeah,
on, when she gets there, they're like, "Oh, I live above this antique store," and then later she's like, "I own it. It was my dad's. He died. I keep it." It's a bit silly to be owning a business just because you miss your dad. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, it fucking is.
yeah.
Yes, it
What?
is.
But why didn't she explain all this crap earlier on when they first went round for pizza? But anyway, that's fine. So they're all chatting. Suddenly, Raph gets thrown through the glass roof, and then a badass fight starts. Now, this is the bit I thought was interesting, right? Because shortly afterwards, one of the ninjas, the foot soldiers, starts getting some nunchucks out, right? And then Michelangelo does as well, and they have like a nunchuck off. Now, in the UK version, when we were kids, every single scene of the nunchucks was cut out. There's even a bit earlier where Michelangelo's ordering a disgusting looking pizza, and he's like throwing his nunchucks around as he's talking. All of that was cut out in the version that I saw when I was kids. So
Mm.
I had seen it since, but like I thought that was so interesting. They must have trimmed off about a minute worth of footage just with stuff with nunchucks in it,
Uh,
and the ending is completely different as well, which we'll come to later.
It's the same reason why it was called in this country the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is because they
Exactly.
were afraid of ninja and nunchucks in particular were a thing in the early 90s that the censors were quite afraid of. And I loved the Turtles cartoon when I was a kid. I had loads of toys, watched the cartoon all the time. Was as a child confused by this film and its tone, but we'll get to that. I was bought for Christmas one year. Me and my brother both were bought Turtles costumes by our grandparents. So they were like pajama onesies with a with a sigh
I love it.
and a big plastic shell. And so my brother was
A
Raphael.
sigh. The sigh is the weapon.
Oh no, what am I thinking of?
Bandana
The
around the eyes.
bandana, yeah, around the
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I was bought. My brother's bought Raphael because it was his favorite, and I was bought Michelangelo because
Mm.
Michael and I liked the show Michelangelo, and
Oh, that's going on the pod. Yeah, we're
we're
discussing that.
we're
Yeah.
doing we're doing that, and I liked Michelangelo because he was the funny one, which I was
Mhm.
just thought was the funny one. So you got with them, you got weapons. My brother got the size, which he'd be like with, and I got a pair of nunchucks. And the censors were right because they had to be taken away from me within about 5 minutes of opening them. I'd started to whack anyone who came near me as hard as I possibly could with these little hollow plastic nunchucks. So I'm not saying that censors are always right, but I think in this case,
They were right.
removing they were right because you get little shits like they running around smacking people in the face.
But you know, katana swords are fine, sais are fine, big wooden sticks are
Absolutely.
fine. Nunchucks, though, no.
No, 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 no. Because you can
Anyway,
get hold of nunchucks, you can't get hold of a sword.
well, I don't know. Talk to me after this call and maybe we'll sort something out.
Big
Anyway,
stick, just unscrew the end of a broom.
and just wrap a
Tell
bit
her
of
how to,
tape
tell
round
her
it
how
there.
to shit weapon.
Yeah, that was a bit rubbish, wasn't it? Your poking device.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a fight in April's flat, and then the whole floor caves in. The entire apartment gets ruined. For some reason, they start passing out axes to start really fucking shit up.
That guy comes in just like, oh, I've got all the
Yeah, one
axes,
for
lads.
you, one for you, one for you. And then suddenly Casey Jones turns up, and then he equals out everything that's going on. Suddenly he can fight a lot better than the Turtles can. April's like, "Who are you?" Oh, but no, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. Then suddenly there's a little trap door for some reason, and then they get out of it, and then they escape whilst the building's on fire. Conveniently, answer machine comes down. Her boss says, "April, you're fired," because earlier on,
After the power's been cut, mind.
after the power's been cut, mind, and she's been fired because she keeps on challenging that police captain's authority. No, I love that guy. He's hilarious. There was one bit in particular I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, "Are you telling me how to do my job?" Must have watched that bit about 10 times because it's so funny. I might soundbite that for this episode. Anyway, so they end up getting in this crappy old van, and it really kind of reminded me of that van they had in the cartoon, right? So I was like, yeah, they don't have the budget to have the big old turtle wagon yet, so they just had some crappy old Volkswagen van or whatever. So for some reason they drive to some farm. It's never explained where the farm is, other than that April owns it. The car conveniently breaks down when they get there, and this is
Thought
when they start.
Leatherface was going to come out and
That would have turned into a whole different film. Yeah. And then this is when the film just gets really weird. It's like Danny starts having a bit of relationship with Splinter, which we'll talk about in a minute. But on the farm, Raphael gets thrown in a bath full of water. I was like, should he not just be in a bed? But anyway, that's fine. And then Donatello's helped to fix the car. Michelangelo, don't know what he's doing. And then it just goes into some horrible narration bit with April and then drawing pictures of people who she's not even around. Like she's drawing one of Leonardo in the bathroom, one of Donatello in the car, and and anyway,
It's exceptionally lazy, that moment where suddenly she just starts narrating how everybody's feeling, because they realize A, the turtle costumes cannot emote enough for you to know what they're thinking, and B, they've only given character development to Raphael at this point. So
yeah, he's
none of the
literally
others are different in any
no.
way, shape, or form.
None. And even Casey Jones, who is he? Why is he there? Why does he like doing what he's doing? And then suddenly there's a really false like romance between him and April. I was like, yeah, I'm not buying this for a second. This is bullshit. But anyway, there's a really
Aggressively gives her a shoulder massage.
sit down.
I find when I'm speaking to women that what they really appreciate is to be shoved on a chair and aggressively massaged.
Okay, see, when will you learn? But
Works.
yeah. And then there's this really cringe bit when who was it? It can't have been Raphael because he was incapacitated, but it might have been Michelangelo. Someone on the top of the mountain goes, Splinter! And it just reminds me.
Now there's an interesting fact about that. So in one of the early drafts of the film, it was originally meant to be Michelangelo has more character development towards the end, and after the bit where they kind of astral project and see Splinter, who's apparently psychic now.
They're all Jedi's now, apparently.
Yeah, they're all Jedi's. They've all seen Star Wars, and Splinter's a psychic. Michelangelo was meant to get a little bit darker for the rest of the film, and then they realised that didn't quite work and they didn't have enough time to do it. So the voice that says Splinter at the top is Raphael, but if you look closely in the silhouette, he's got nunchucks on his side.
Ah, I did not spot that. That's interesting. But to be honest with you, whenever you see Raphael, Michelangelo, the orange and the red are so similar. Sometimes I'm like,
similar.
which one is that? Apart from when you look at their weapons. But obviously, when you was a kid and you saw the cut version, you didn't know which one was which.
I was watching it last night, and there were times when I couldn't tell them apart at all. Yeah. And without the purple and the blue, you wouldn't be able to tell the other two apart either. They all looked exactly the same and behaved exactly the same for the most part.
Yeah. And it's weird because in the cartoon, Michelangelo had a really voice like this, dude. But in this one, they all kind of speak the same, apart from Raphael's got a very, very thick New York accent. But the rest of them just kind of
Donatello's Corey Feldman.
Yeah, that bothered me. For some reason, I thought he was Michelangelo, but he was like, oh, no, he's Donatello. I was like, oh, could have been anyone.
No one knows. Well, I mean, why? Because I assume his career was on the down trend at that point, because there's no reason for him to be in it. Like, none of the others are famous. He is the only celebrity in massive inverted commas voice at that point. And Donatello isn't even, he's like the least developed of the Turtles.
Yeah, because in the car, he made all the machines and made the repairs, and he didn't do anything in this film. It's just him and Michelangelo just taking food in the kitchen a lot of the time, you know?
Just dicking about.
Yeah. Leonardo's got his whole, oh, I'm a leader and you're pissing me off, Raph. And Raph is the one like all this anger. But yeah, those two don't really do anything.
I also enjoy in April's voiceover at this point where she's like, my new friends have tasted their first defeat. It's like, they literally said at the beginning that was their first battle. So they've tasted their first defeat in their second battle.
Yeah, they've only been doing this for like 2 days. Like, a bit slack. Yeah. But yeah, and then
they've been training for years. How did that go? Badly.
Yeah, that's true, because they're meant to be, 15? I was like, well, how long have you been training to be these warriors or whatever? But anyway. So we get some cool scenes where in the field and they're fighting and that sort of thing. I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And then eventually Raphael comes too, and this is when they decide, right, we need to go back. Then, back in the Foot Soldier clan, the hideout, Danny's been building up a relationship with Splinter. This is when we get some exposition of Splinter. Now, this is my biggest problem with the film, right? Because this bit is so stupid. He's explaining that back in Japan, he was a pet rat in a cage and he belonged to Hamato Yoshi. And a jealous warrior, Urokosaki, breaks in. No, that's not true. He was giving them shit in Japan. And then Hamato Yoshi and his pet rat and wife moved to America. Urokosaki follows them there.
Hamato Yoshi dresses like someone who's never worn overalls in his life. When he's
exactly
back, he looks like one of the village people.
Oh, yeah, because he's already got some construction work job in New York. Yeah. Yes, yeah. And again, it goes really dark and weird because every time there's exposition, they have to do this style. I don't know why. Anyway, Urokosaki kills the wife, kills Hamato Yoshi. Then the cage breaks open and the rat's like, ah! And then gets Urokosaki. And all he does is cut his ear off. It's like, you've got no problem killing these two people, but you don't want to kill the rat. Now, in the cartoon, Hamato Yoshi was Splinter, you know? same sort of thing. He had a rivalry with Arasaki. He came to America. He was living in the sewers. He came into contact with the ooze, and he was always handling rats. He became a rat. In this one, the rat has literally evolved to become a human. It's like, well, like human rat thing. It's like, so you're telling me some pet rat in a cage has mastered ninjutsu and they can pass this on to turtles? So I don't know why they changed that. Maybe they
It
just
was
didn't want
it
to
was
introduce another actor as Hibato Yoshi. I don't know.
it was the well they do though. They have the flashback of him. And there's another problem I have with the film on that I will come back to. But the thing that got me was the bit where you had the rat in the cage mimicking the ninja moves, like the
So
mimicking the ninja.
stupid.
Like, do
Some
you know
crap
what
puppet.
rats, just regular rats, are capable of? Because it is not ninjutsu.
No. Yeah,
I mean,
and
I'm not a
also,
vet.
we saw a shot of a rat right at the start when April gets stolen. That's what a rat looks like, not what was in the cage doing all this crap. But yeah,
That was a fucking abomination, and I don't know what
yeah.
you've done with it.
But anyway, so he tells Danny, no one knows what happens to Rocco Saki, but you're wearing his label on your forehead. You're like,
I mean,
well,
we could have all,
it's the same dude, right?
yeah, we could guess, right? Oh, could it possibly be the guy with the mask and all the knives?
Yeah. And in which case, then he confronts Danny, he being Shredder, finds one of the drawings that Danny had, because also Danny was then hiding out in the hideout of the Turtles for some reason, of all places he could have hid, because I'm with the Foot Clan. I'm not with the Foot Clan, I'm with the Turtle. Anyway, so then Shredder finds out Turtles are still alive, orders them to be killed. And in that, what begins quite an epic battle in between the sewers and on the streets between the Turtles and the Foot Clan. And then that's when, oh dear, that's when Casey Jones has that fight with Tatsu, and it's so bad. He's beating the shit out of him, and it's really racist again. He's like, "Oh, we obviously have a language barrier here." I was like, "Oh."
Oh, you've missed the most offensive joke. So the bit where they're in the sewer before the foot attack, when before Casey follows Danny back to the Foot Clan's lair, when they say, Casey Jones, you're claustrophobic, and
Oh God, yeah.
he says, I've never even looked at another guy. It's like, wait, what? I mean, that is a straight. What do you think the joke is there? You think you're calling him homophobic?
Yeah, because if you're calling him
Does he think?
homophobic, he'd be like, "No, I'm not. I've appreciation for everyone." But you're saying
I don't
I'm
think in
homophobic. Like,
1990 he would
yeah,
have said
I am.
that.
Yeah.
1990
Very,
would have been like, damn right I am. Um,
very confusing.
does he think he's calling him homosexual? I mean, they have really kind of reached for that. Like, there is no joke there. No joke.
I think most of the people when it said this was kids, it probably just went. Like, anyway, yeah. So he goes to sleep in a car. He sees Danny, and he follows him there. And then that's when he has that fight with Tatsu, hits him with a golf club, says four, and then goes, "Oh, I'll never call a doll game again." Oh,
I
shitty
mean, I wonder
dialogue.
if he'd found a non-sporting good there, if he could have used it. Like, if he'd found a sword, would he have just been like, "Nah." Can he only fight with
Yeah,
sporting
exactly.
equipment?
If he found a knuckle duster, oh, that's heavy. That is. Like,
Or just found a gun and just shot his own foot off immediately.
then he talks to Sam Rockwell, who's criminally underutilized in this, but obviously he wasn't famous back then. He's like, "Oh, we're a family." He's like, "No, you're not. You call that a family, and this a family, whatever." And then
Turns
we
him
get,
around immediately. Like these
yeah,
kids.
yeah, you know what? You're right. Let's get out of here. Shredder's wrong.
Oh, do you mean these weird criminal masterminds don't care about me? You know, I hadn't considered it that way.
Oh dear. But anyway, so big old fights going on all throughout all this. Turtles make their way up onto the balcony. Suddenly, Shredder arrives and says,
From
"Yeah,
somewhere.
so yeah."
Jumps from somewhere.
But I love that bit. That bit when he's fighting him, he's so badass. And then they realise no, they can't defeat him. And then that's when
I
they
think they
ask.
might have been able to defeat him if they hadn't all attacked him one by one repeatedly.
Yeah, I think it was an ego thing. Like, oh, I've got this. Like, you clearly haven't. Like this dude, like knows the same
And
style
even when
you
that's
do, but
even
much
when
better.
that's been proven, you try it again. You all go to him together, then still attack him one by one.
Yeah. And then that's when they ask where Splinter is. He goes, "Oh, the rat, it has a name. It had a name." Like, oh, no. And then Leonardo's going to be killed. And then he asks them to throw the weapons over. Now, uncut version, you don't see the nunchucks go over. Sorry, the cut version, you don't see the nunchucks go over. The uncut one, Michelangelo throws his weapons over. The nunchucks fall on the ladder. He's about to kill Leonardo. Suddenly, Splinter appears for some reason. He's been freed by Casey and Danny earlier on, but he's managed to climb up the ladder super quick.
He looks awful in that bit when he's standing there as
Yeah,
well. Like that, the puppet looks so good until he's standing there.
yeah.
Looks
But
awful.
But it looks even more awful in the cut version, which will come to in a sec. So he says, "Yeah, I know who you are, Uraraka. You know, I was the pet of Hamato Yoshi." Shredder pulls down his mask, sees all his face where Splinter fucked him up, charges him up with a spear. Now, in the cut version, I remember as a kid, Splinter just literally moves out the way. Shredder goes, "Ah!" and falls off. And it's so rubbish. And it's so weird because he does a little flip, and then suddenly you see him falling like that. It made no sense, right? Whereas in this one, Splinter pulls out the nunchucks that he obviously grabbed from off the ladder, wraps it around the spear, hangs it over, gives him a little spill, and then lets him go. And then he falls into the garbage truck. Then Casey
Doesn't
Jones pulls the lever and murders him.
and says, "Whoops."
That happened.
Fine, just murdered someone. Um, I don't think whoever was shooting this, well, the director, we'll get to the director. I don't think he understood centrifugal force because when um, Shredder runs at Splinter and he kind of sticks him and he wraps the nunchucks around him, flips him over. You see like Shredder go like full flipping over,
Yeah, yeah.
and then suddenly he's just hanging there. It's like I don't think the amount of momentum that had been created there. He's no way that a rat would have been able to hold him up and then give him another one of his very wise old man speeches, sounding vaguely Japanese, vaguely West Indian, depending on what scene it is.
We'll have to look
And
up the
then
voice.
Shredder attempts to murder him, despite the fact he's the only thing keeping him alive, and then
Yeah, with
falls
the
into a garbage
sword.
truck.
Yeah, they have a little knife, and then
Yeah, he
he catches the
chucks
knife
it.
and just drops him. And then, yeah,
Yeah,
he's crushed. Police captain turns up. What's going on here? Sam Rockwell says you'll find your answer in some warehouse. He's like, no, you'll just find a lot of stolen shit. Like,
yeah.
what
Also,
answers?
doesn't arrest any of them.
No. And then,
Doesn't in this day and age they'd be all dead. They'd have been shot before the police even got there. Um,
yeah,
no one questions the dead man in the truck.
no. Although, if you see the second one, you know that Shredder isn't dead and he's back and his just face is a bit mangled because apparently that's what, a garbage dispenser will do to you. But anyway, fine.
April O'Neil reappears after not being in the film for the last 20 minutes.
Yep, has a very forced kiss with Casey that just comes out of nowhere. All the turtles like, yeah, yeah, go. And then all trying to find out of a good way to say how awesome that was. And that's when Splinter says, Cowabunga. They all go Cowabunga and then cuts to that really, really 80s rap. And that's the movie.
And then Splinter does say, I made a funny. And as I watched it yesterday, I thought, where?
No, you made a statement.
Well, you said Cowabunga. That's not a joke.
Yeah, I was trying to think, like, did he trick him into saying something stupid? No, just
Had he said he hated Cowabunga earlier? Is this a callback? I'm not watching it again.
And in the second one, he makes him say, or he makes him do something. He goes, I made another funny. But again, we'll discuss the second one another time. So we've discussed the film at length. So what I want to do now is talk about what did we love about it back then or hate about it back then? And then what do we love stroke hate about it now? So, Spiff, you go first. From your memory as a child, what did you love or hate about it back then?
So my memory as a child is, I think, as I said at the beginning, is pretty pretty low. I mean, I definitely watched it as a child. I definitely watched it, but it didn't make as big of an impression on me at the time as a lot of other films from the era did. Mm-hmm. I mean, this, for example, made a hell of a lot less of an impression on me than the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I absolutely loved as a kid. As I showed up my taste. This, I think, sort of just came and went for me. Certainly not as impactful as the cartoon. And I think the things that I probably liked about it as a kid were, the turtles, the interplay of the turtles, seeing them in live action, which you didn't really think you'd ever get to see, right? Very rarely at the time did cartoons become live action stuff. I'm sure there's a million examples that prove me wrong on that, but as I remember it, where is my Thundercats film? Where is my Bucky O'Hare movie? You just didn't get it, right? Right. And this we got. I think I probably liked the fighting. I probably liked Casey Jones and his hitting people with sports equipment. Probably a reason why I wasn't allowed sports equipment. But it's for me, the memory of it as a child is fairly vague. How about you?
I love this movie. I watched it again and again and again. And I remember the first time watching it being a bit disappointed that Krang wasn't in it, but then it totally makes sense. They didn't have the budget for it. And Krang is a little bit of a silly character, quite frankly. I think it works when Shredder's a crime lord with ninjas fucking stuff up in New York. When you do all that Dimension X stuff and the Technodrome, I was like, this is a bit rubbish. So I was okay with that. But yeah, I think I was disappointed there was no Krang, but I loved everything about it. I loved the fighting. I loved it was quite dark, not as in tonally. Yeah, totally, yes, not as in visually, because that was quite annoying. The fighting was cool. The comedy was good, I guess, at the time. It was just a fun film. And the fact that it was a nice short 90 minutes, although now I say that's a bad thing. So yeah, it was more positive than bad when I was a kid. I remember really
Mm.
enjoying it and watching it again and again. The second one only seen a couple of times because I really didn't dig it.
I
But
see. I like the second one more when I was a kid. I think because I saw it at the cinema and because I
yeah,
had more direct interaction with it. Um, I remember being disappointed of this one and of the sequel. Not for Krang, because as much as I liked Krang, you're not going to see that in a film of that era realized in any good way. I was always disappointed in the lack of Bebop and Rocksteady,
yeah, but they kind of turn up in the second one, sort
but
of,
not
because
really.
yeah, it's a
You don't
bird and a
get
dog. Yeah,
you don't get Bebop and Rocksteady until the sequel to the Michael Bay one.
which I don't want to watch.
No,
I
I've
do
never
not want to
seen.
watch
I've
it.
never seen either of the Michael Bay ones. I've no interest in watching them.
I've watched the first one; it's terrible. So I learned my lesson, and I've never watched the cartoon ones because there's so many spin-offs. And to be honest, I never watched the original cartoon, the '80s one. There were so many variations of it. I was like, nah, that's my jam, the original one.
Mm.
Okay, so we've talked about what we loved about it then, or hated about it then. What about now? What did you, but let's start with what did you like about it on your rewatch
What did I
last
like?
night?
What did I like about it now? It's it's weird. As I was watching it, I thought this isn't good. It's not, but it's not so bad. It's good either. It's just sort of there.
Okay.
I watched it. I didn't hate it. There were some enjoyable moments. I mean, the stuff in the farmhouse, as much as it's a massive narrative left turn, is more enjoyable than the stuff in the city, just because it's slightly quieter.
Hmm.
Casey Jones, I think, is the character that comes out of it looking the best.
Yep.
Um, but then Elias Koteas is a fairly decent actor. I mean, he later went on to be in The Thin Red Line. So you've got someone who's, a proper dramatic actor playing a role. So you get a sense of that. Splinter, I really, really liked. I didn't like Shredder as much as I think you did, because he's
Interesting.
barely in it and he walks
That's
around looking
true.
like Bonnie Tyler. Um,
Yeah.
with his big spangly cloak on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he is hardly in it, isn't he? Only like
He's
three
he's
scenes or
barely
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
he barely features. And as I've said several times, what was his plan? What is he up to? What's he doing? No one knows.
Yeah,
It's
but did
never
he even
explained.
have a plan in the cartoon?
Well,
Who
no, but it's
knows?
different. It's a different medium, right?
Yeah, just mischief in the cartoon, wasn't it?
um, yeah. I mean, apart from that, there's not much to like. To say that, oh, that was really well done. So the animatronics were good.
Yep.
Performances weren't bad.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, there's more to. There's also not a lot that I hate about it either. There's some questionable stuff, but there's not a lot that I'd sit there and say, oh, this is terrible. How about you? What are the things you liked?
So I like Shredder, but yeah, I agree with you that he was hardly in it and he could have been utilized more. I like the fact, even though I didn't like it when I was a kid, that there was no Krang. It was just a simple
Mhm.
story, just like, yeah, let's just introduce you to this concept of the turtles. Like, yeah, okay, easy to follow. And a very dark feel to it, because I always thought the sequels were too colourful and too corny and they're really hammering down on the comedy, whereas I thought this one kind of had the nice balance, where some of the comedy doesn't work.
This kind of
Um,
hews closer to the original comic run than it
yeah,
does the cartoon series, and I think because Eastman and Laird had a lot of input on the story for this and a lot of
yeah.
input on the creative side, so they brought that back to their original. I mean, this is basically the story of the original comics run.
Yeah,
Um,
but they incorporate some elements like the bandanas, the pizza, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very true the comic, and that's what I
what's the
liked about it.
what was the name of the cameraman in the cartoon? Was it Vern?
Vernon, yeah, that's one of,
Vernon is not in it.
and neither's Mr. Byrne, which is April's boss as well. They're not in it, which
No,
is
because you've
annoying.
got Charles as her boss in this
Yeah,
one.
why could it just been Byrne? Like I don't know, that annoyed me.
That
But
actually
yeah,
just reminds me of one of the lines where the guy and his son, when he's driving in the car, and he turns to him and says, "Oh, why are you stealing a car stereo? I make enough money for the both of us." It's like, you're a parent, that's your job. Of course
yeah,
you do.
exactly.
What a redundant statement you've just made.
I mean, I was
I
thinking
only make
that
enough
like
money for myself.
I'm like a chief news reporter, I make shitloads of money. But yeah, I'll take that. Yes, you're a parent. Like,
Yeah.
I can't afford you anymore, Daddy. You got to go to the children's home.
Go and steal some car stereos.
Yeah,
Like, you got to look after yourself. 13.
yeah, you got my blessing. You can hang out with Shredder now. But yeah, I thought the fight scenes are really good. I do like that whole thing with Raphael, the angriness, and him and
Mhm.
Leo, that sort of thing. I think that's cool. Would want more of that. And again, I can't say enough. I love that police chief. You trying to tell me how to do my job?
I
Made
have a
me
feeling you're going
crack
to
up.
shout at me. You're going to shout that at me several times.
Yeah, of course. All right, so let's move on to the stupid stuff. Although I'm not sure if you've covered it already in your kind of wrap up of what you liked about it.
Oh
Was there
no,
anything you're?
no, no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay. Like, then let's get on what you don't like about it then.
What do I not like about it? Right, for number one, you have in Tatsu and Shredder two characters played by Asian actors, and dubbed over by white actors doing Asian voices.
Was it? I didn't know that.
Look at the credits.
Oh,
Their
that's
voice of
bad.
Tatsu. It's not him. It's some guy doing it. Like
Oh,
same as Splinter. Not an Asian actor doing that voice.
no wonder Tatsu sounds like a Bond henchman then.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
oh,
Same. Yeah. Yeah, you look at it. It's they've dubbed them over.
oh, that's
Um,
terrible. All right, I'll keep
yeah.
you that. I'm adding that to my list of shit I didn't like about it. All right, go on.
The fact that you couldn't. I mean, I think when I was a kid, I loved the turtles. Right? They were the turtles. They were cool. They were funky. They're fucking irritating, aren't they?
Yeah,
There
they're
were
proper
moments in the
annoying.
early going where I was like, I don't know, like, and you know, you watch and you think, okay, they're supposed to be teenagers, I get it, but they're also meant to be the leads. Like, they can't be this fucking irritating all the way through. Because like Michelangelo in particular, who was my favorite when I was a kid, is the kind of prick you get at a party where you're like, can he leave, please?
Yeah. Oh, it just gets way
Can
too
he go?
excited. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's even a bit when they get like symbols who's like, behind him, bang. I was like, don't be a prick. Like, why would you do
Yeah.
that?
Or like they get the moldy pizza and have like a little mock pizza funeral. I'm like, what's going on? What's
Oh,
happening here?
do you like penicillin on your pizza? Just say it.
That's sort of again part of the problem. The tone of it is all over the shop. Like
Yeah.
it's at once really annoying, hyperactive comedy, aimed at kids. It's, very, very aggressively late 80s. Like it's not even
Mm.
90s, it's very late 80s. And then suddenly it's very somber and Splinter's being all, wise and sage and repeatedly telling them that he's going to die from about minute one. First line is like, one day I'll be gone. Very careful here not to do his voice because
Yes, please don't.
no, you know, it it's just all over the shop. And then you got April O'Neil, who's sort of the lead for the first half, and then she completely disappears at the end and just becomes random love interest for Casey Jones. She had nothing to do in the last 20 minutes.
I would say she was
Um,
well cast, though. I did like her as April because if
she
they
was, and then
recast her in the second one, someone a bit bland and nondescript. So
yeah, because she complained too much. The actress that played her apparently complained too much about the levels of violence and the working conditions. So they switched her out for a new person in the next one. Elias Koteas, by the way, does not appear in number two as Casey Jones, but I have it on the authority of IMDb that he is back in the third one.
yeah, I read that. But is he actually Casey Jones, or is he just some samurai warrior in the
Well, he's got two
past?
characters. He's got two characters. So I think he plays both. I think he plays
Okay,
Casey Jones and another character from the past. Is my understanding. I've not seen it. I'm not gonna see it.
no, and we're not going to cover it. We may cover Turtles 2 on this podcast, but not covering Turtles 3 or Turtles in Time, as you
Um,
keep calling it.
incorrectly, maybe. The other thing is the city of lost children, where Nancy Tatsu and Shredder live. Um, it is aggressively a 40-year-old man's idea of what kids would like. It's
Well,
they're
arcade
playing
machines.
poker and smoking cigars. It's like it's not you and your mates down at the Y. Like
Well, again, this is why it made me think of Pinocchio, where they're all smoking cigars and drinking
yeah.
beer and playing snooker and whatever. But yeah, they've got
There's also
skateboarding
dig
though. That's cool.
there's a dig quite very very early online where they take a dig at Ghostbusters, where April O'Neil on her first news report says, like, "Who are you going to call?" And it's like, "Do not reference better films.
Yeah,
You don't come off looking good if you're trying to compare yourself to a much better movie."
exactly.
It just the whole thing for me feels kind of tonally all over the shop, just complete whiplash, and then kind of very first drafty at points.
Yeah, I think it
Very
could
much
have
like
done someone like a David S. Goyer to come over and like do a rewrite and take a lot of silly shit out, put some better stuff in. And for me, I think it could have been a lot longer, like 90 minutes. It just whizzes along, you know. I mean, when you're a kid, that's perfect. But as an adult, I was like, you could have had like half an hour more in this and develop some stuff.
I wouldn't have added half an hour more. It felt long at points. The first half feels long, like
Mm-hmm.
at points. Also, just visually very drab. Like,
Mm.
so if you consider that Steve Barron, who directed the Aha video for Take on Me, um, and that is very visually interesting. This is very just flat and plain, and yeah, just uninteresting to look at. And Raphael aside, the other three turtles are completely interchangeable.
And that's strange you said that because they had a budget of about 14 million, right? They could
Mm.
have done more with what they had, but it seems like they were on a shoestring budget, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I think a lot of it probably went into the turtle outfits, and they are
Probably.
very impressive for the time.
Yeah, very good.
Very impressive. You only see one of the stunt performers through the mouth once. It's a bit of the farmhouse where April O'Neil and Donatello are standing in the door, and Donatello laughs and throws his head back, and you can see eyes looking out.
Ah,
It's
okay.
fairly disturbing to look at.
Didn't spot that.
No, I did. I just that's the benefit of having the Blu-ray, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. So what did you not like? Because I could talk more, but
Yeah, otherwise we'll be here for like a 3 hour podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, I've mentioned it already. It whizzes along 90 minutes. For me, it could have been longer, half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, whatever. More character development. As you said, it's very dimly lit. It's just very murky. Could have been done a bit more colourful. Some of the comedy don't work. Like that bit when they do the tequila dance and the start go ninjutsu. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's just,
That made
ugh.
me cringe watching it.
Yeah,
That I
exactly. Me
cringed
too.
watching it. It's kind of thing me watching it with somebody else, and you're embarrassed to be watching it with somebody else because you don't want them to think that you like this.
Yeah, just really. But even when I was a kid, I didn't understand. I was like, what's this scene for? Like, and as an adult, I don't understand what that scene's for.
Time, just filling time.
Yeah. Casey Jones, underutilized. He's probably the best thing in the film, but, could have had a bit more with him. Don't like that scene with Raphael in the park when they're talking about cricket. That bit's stupid. Um, we've said about the farm stuff, like the narration from April. Didn't really like that, especially when the turtles can communicate like Jedi's. Like, no, 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 no. Didn't
No,
like
that
that
was
at all.
awful. That was I don't know where that comes from. It's it's clearly, you've seen Star Wars. It doesn't make any sense. There's a bit of a show that's like, oh, it's the thing that binds you all together. It doesn't explain what that thing is.
No.
Is it love? Is it that they're brothers?
They're brothers, yeah.
Okay. Is that what binds them? Because then what binds them to him? Is it those?
I guess so. Yeah, because he was, I guess, their creator, I suppose, like looked after him, whatever. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
silly. Some of the dialogue's really crap. Some of the jokes,
Yeah, some of the dialogue is terrible.
like especially like, yeah, we get it. Casey Jones is a sportsman, but like when he hits Tatsu, he's like 4, and then I never call golf a dull game. He goes like, no, 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 rubbish.
Or when Shredder says, "You're lying to me, and you're hiding something as well." It's like those are the same thing.
Same shit. Yeah,
That is that is the same thing. I don't quite know why you think those are different.
yeah. And then yeah, the ultimate for me, the bit that made me crack up laughing was Raphael or Michelangelo Splendor on the top of the mountain. Like, you say Rocky, mate. Like,
He's shouting at.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
so
that's my gripe with it overall.
so what did you think the message of this film was? Because I was thinking about this last night while I was watching. I got to the end. I was like, what is this film trying to say? Apart from that women aren't allowed to fight and there are no black people in New York.
That's true.
There is not a single black person in the film. No, that's not true. There is some of the kids, some of the delinquent kids are,
Okay.
but they don't
Yeah.
speak.
No.
Very importantly.
Then again, that we had
Um,
90 minutes. Sam Rockwell barely speaks in this film. So
well, yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah. No, I don't know what the message is. I guess just no, I don't know. Crime is
So
bad.
my kind of feeling as a theme between Shredder and his kids and Splinter and the Turtles, it's all about fathers and sons. Because
Okay.
you've also got the newspaper editor and his son. It's all about
Yeah,
fathers and sons
that's true.
and how you can be a good father and how you can be a bad father. And ultimately, the message right at the end is, if you fuck up, your dad will just come and beat him up for you.
Yeah.
It's basically one big film, which is my dad's harder than your dad because
Apart from Charles, he didn't do anything.
They just
He
beat
just
Shredder up at the end. It's like, oh, Dad, sort it out.
yeah.
Go for us. That is
Yeah.
to me the message of the Turtles is my dad's harder than your dad.
Oh dear. Yes, but okay, why not?
So I've got a couple of like little trivia questions,
Oh,
or at
go
least
for it.
a trivia question so you already know what the budget was
Hmm.
for the film, 30.5 million. What do you think was the worldwide gross for the film?
Now I did a bit of research on this. It was about
Okay.
$200 million or something like that.
$200 million worldwide. And what number film of the year was it by box office gross? In
Oh,
America. So in America, it took 135 million domestically. What out of the top 100 films, where do you think it came for the year?
see that maybe like I think Ghost topped like number one for the year.
Ghost did top number one. That yes, it did. Well done. Did you look at the same list as I looked at?
No, I can't remember where I've read that about Ghost. I
Yeah,
think it might have
Ghost
been.
was
Yeah. I would say within the top 10, I think. So maybe 7 or 8.
that is number four.
Wow.
Only three films grossed more in America than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they were Ghost,
Hmm.
Pretty Woman,
Hmm.
and Home Alone.
Understandable.
Some of the films it beat: Back to the Future 3,
I thought that
Total
was
Recall.
89, Back to the
It was
Future
still, it
3.
was probably still going on in
Okay.
'92.
Fine.
Total Recall, Die Hard 2, Dances with Wolves, all the
Wow.
way
I
down
still
at
remember.
191, the 191st biggest film of the year, Miller's Crossing,
That
which
is
is a
interesting.
stone cold classic, did not gross anywhere near as much as the Turtles.
And Turtles 2, was that the Turtles 1? Was that high? That's crazy.
That one, and Turtles 2, absolutely nowhere near. Massive, massive drop off in box office.
Oh, pile of shit. And then we won't talk about the third one.
No, we will not. No, we will not. What was the other thing I had? Nope, I didn't have anything else. You can cut that.
Cool. Right. So I guess what is our final verdict? Do you think it holds up?
Well, no, no, but I don't think it did at the time.
Interesting.
I don't think it's ever been good. It's that's as I say, it's not good. It's not so bad. It's good. It's just there. So no, I do not think it holds up.
Interesting.
Do
Well,
you think it holds up?
just about. And it's probably fueled by nostalgia. The fact that, went back and watched it, like, yeah, cool, the catchy tune, they're fighting. I love this as a kid. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not, oh my God, this is amazing. This is badass. It's not like this is the worst film I've ever seen. It's just, it's good.
Yeah.
It just about holds up, I think. So I think you're going to
So
trump
you're
me, though, by saying it doesn't.
no, it doesn't. And I think yeah, it's those rose tinted glasses, right? I think my goal for this podcast series is to take the rose tinted glasses and smash them until there is nothing good left in my childhood.
Yeah,
Till
I
I'm
think
walking on the broken glass of nostalgia.
Yeah, I think it's a nice duality there because I'm probably going to be the more optimistic one. Oh, come on, it's all right. And you're the one like, no, no, it's not. It's not. It's shit. But
Yeah,
then,
I'll be like, well, what's all these white people doing Chinese voices, Japanese voices throughout the entire thing? What's going
yeah,
on there? What's happening here? What's that homophobic joke about?
yeah. Now we've been discussing these. You have swayed my opinion a bit, so perhaps it doesn't hold up after all. But yeah, cool. Anything further you want to say about Turtles before we talk about next week's nomination?
Anything further on about Turtles? No, I don't think so. No, I mean, we could do number two at some point. I don't really want to. I'm still disappointed there's never been a live action version of Baxter Stockman from the cartoons, although I think that'd probably be horrifying.
Yeah, and also it's ripping off the Fly because that's
Oh,
what
it's
he
very
became.
much ripping
Oh
off.
no,
Yeah,
Baxter is in part
yeah,
two of the Michael Bay one. He's the one who creates Rocksteady and Bebop.
yeah. He's Tyler Perry, but he doesn't get turned into a fly, as I understand it. He's just in the film,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they've never done, and they're not going to do a third one because I think that did not do well at the box office.
No, good. I think sometimes this sort of thing is like just leave it alone, right? You've made a few adaptations of it, just leave it alone now.
I think there's an ongoing cartoon series. I think.
Oh yeah, there's many cartoons. Actually, I do remember seeing another version of a film. It came out in 2007. It's just called TMNT, and I think Sarah Michelle
Yeah,
Gellar is April, but I don't remember it being amazing. It was okay.
it's animated, right?
Yeah, yeah. I watched it on a plane going on holiday, so
I mean,
I was
see, all I
probably
will say actually about this film is that it's quite admirable in 1990 to be doing a live action version of this because it would have been so easy for them just to do a feature length version of the cartoon, make a bit
yeah,
of money, and be on their way.
yeah.
So I mean, I'll give them that. They've really tried.
I mean, Turtles was crazy. I mean, you couldn't get the toys anywhere. Like,
No.
my mum had to like put in orders at like, that on that catalog you used to get Freeman's years ago. She had to get them through them in the
Mm,
end because if you ever went to Woolworths, Toys R Us, WH Smith, wherever, you can never get the toys. So my mum had to get it off a catalog in the end just for us to get some toys. It was just chaos, just like Buzz Lightyear would be later on with Toy Story.
yeah, I got one of those for Christmas that year.
You were
My
lucky.
granddad had to go. My granddad had to queue up outside Toys R Us for 2 hours to get me a Buzz Lightyear.
He was a good man,
He was a good man. Good man. I've still got it.
and so you should.
Mm,
Prized possession, badge of honor.
right possession. Yep. Anyway,
Right. So I think we've talked about Turtles to death. So on our next episode, Smith, as I picked Turtles for this episode,
mm,
what are you choosing for our next episode?
what do you think when I say the words Paul Verhoeven?
Pervert. No, my
I thought you were
no,
going to say
no.
like Total Recall, Basic Instinct,
Well, yeah, my mind
maybe.
went to Basic Instinct, Showgirls, that sort of stuff. But
Your mind always goes to Showgirls.
no, no. If anything, if jokes aside, it would be RoboCop. But
Robocop.
I don't suppose we're reviewing RoboCop
No,
because
no, no,
we
no,
know
no.
that film holds up. It's badass.
And Total Recall, both of them hold up just fine. We don't
Very
need to
good.
watch them. No, no. Well, I'm going to take us back to the year that fashion forgot, the year 2000,
Mhm.
when I had curtains and wore a lot beige, and you had a French crop.
I did.
um, and see a film that I actually have not watched since I saw it at the cinema. I've
Okay.
never owned it in any, and I'm a man with a lot of DVDs and a lot of Blu-rays, and I've never owned this in any physical format. I will by the time we next record this.
Hmm.
And we are going to watch Hollow Man.
Hollow Man. Kevin Bacon. Okay.
Kevin Bacon,
Interesting.
Elizabeth Shue.
Okay. Yeah. I think I've got it on DVD, so that'd be an easy rewatch. But yeah, you're right. I don't think I've watched that for a good 20 years. Maybe once on DVD after cinema. So we would have
So it
been
came,
about 16, I think, when that came
it
out.
came out in the year 2000. So yeah, 15. I'd have been 15. I think you might have been 16, if it depending on what time of the year it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I sneaked in at the cinema, so that 'cause it was an 18, then I would have been
Yes.
underage. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I definitely saw it at the cinema. I remember that much. And I've not seen it since. So
Okay.
I remember very little, except for a couple of things that are probably going to prove to be quite troubling to watch.
Hence the Paul Verhoeven pervert.
Yes, exactly. But yes, Hollow Man.
Hollow Man. Okay. Well, excellent. All right. Well, I best go off and do my research on Hollow Man and rewatch it. But thank you, Smith. This has been fun this week. And don't forget, it's not just us guys who are going to be choosing stuff for each episode. You can give your suggestions to us as well. And don't forget, it doesn't just have to be a film. It can be a TV show, it could be a cartoon, I don't know, music, even an experience. Was there something that you really loved fondly and you want us to revisit? We're open to all ideas. So just to plug our socials, we've got an email. It's itdoesn'tholduppodcast@gmail.com. We have Instagram. It's at It Doesn't Hold Up Podcast. We're on Twitter at Doesn't Hold Up Pod. And we've got a YouTube channel where this video will be uploaded for, as soon as possible on at It Doesn't Hold Up Podcast. So you can contact us on all those channels. But no, this has been fun. Thank you, Smith. And yeah, I look forward to discussing Hollow Man on our next episode.
Very good. See you soon.